Well, hello everybody. This is Nils. Welcome to tonight's show, which might be very short, given that it's like 100 degrees in my room here. My computer might actually just stop working. I suppose that's a possibility. And I didn't really prepare anything for tonight's stream. I have been listening to an interesting podcast by a guy I know and like named Barry O'Reilly. He just came out with a new book called Unlearn, and he's got a podcast about the topic of unlearn. The idea is that you have to unlearn things in order to learn new things. So if you're trying to become more effective at business in some way, then you probably have to unlearn some things that you think you know, and before you can learn new things that are going to help you take your business to the next level. And so I was thinking about this topic of unlearning, and I have a slightly different take on it. I think Barry's is correct in sort of the way he focuses it, but there's another aspect of unlearning it's slightly different. It's probably not even unlearning, but it made me think of it. And that is when we have ideas about how things work, and those ideas are based on a theory, but the theory is kind of wrong or incomplete or not sort of grounded in first principles. So I think of myself as someone who's always questioning and who likes to get down to the first principles of a particular topic or something like that. And so one of the areas where I've done that is, just for example, a lot of different areas, but one of them is in agile. So agile software development, agile methodologies. And I have talked about this in a little bit. I don't know if you've seen, I do have a blog post and a podcast episode about sort of a way to think about agile. It's a chapter in my book as well. But the idea being that there's all these well-known sort of artifacts of the agile movement. There's the Agile Manifesto, and there's some methodologies like Scrum and test-driven development and extreme programming. And the problem with all of those is that they attempt to describe why it is that agile is more effective. And I certainly don't disagree that agile as an approach to doing things isn't. I definitely think that agile as an approach to doing things is more effective in some ways than the old, what's called waterfall method of doing things. But I think that the reasons that people ascribe to that are wrong. In particular, one of the things that agile fundamentally does is it addresses a human cognitive bias, or cognitive limit, which is that we're not good at predicting, and particularly the future. As Yogi Berra said, prediction is hard, especially about the future. And that is the problem with a methodology where that for its success, that depends on you being successful at predicting the future. And that actually is what a waterfall methodology is. That's fundamentally what the waterfall methodology is it's a way to optimize the work that you do based on the belief that you know how long it will take you to do things. And so you can order a whole long list of things in time and understand when you're going to be finished completing all of those things. So those things might be activities like building the different components of a piece of software, or they might be building a house, or they might be building a new building or something like that. Now, there are some cases where we actually do know how long it will take to do certain types of things. So, for example, if you're a house builder and you build a particular style of house that's based on a particular plan, and you build many of those houses all based on the same plan, that over the course of building 20 or 50 of those, you come to a good understanding of how long it takes you to build them. And you can probably build the next 100 of those houses within a certain range of time, given that there are no surprises, and you can get all the supplies and things that you need, and you can get the workers that you need and things. If you're pretty confident you can get all those things, then you probably can be confident in saying, I'll be able to build this house in 7 months, and I'll be able to build the next house after that in 7 more months, plus or minus a week or two for some level of uncertainty. The problem with software and a lot of more complex things than just houses is that you probably haven't ever done them before. You aren't confident about how your team is going to work. You don't know what you're going to find when you start developing your software, or developing even in the realm of houses. It's a problem. If you're building a house that's never been built before, there may be architectural and engineering challenges that you don't foresee, and those are going to cause extra time. Or you may be building on a site that you don't understand well, and that may cause extra time. There may be things you have to do. Or you may be building with materials that you haven't worked with before, and those cause challenges to how fast you can complete something, or you may have a supply chain challenge. So the point is that there's all these things that we try to do, and we sort of think that we have a sense of how long they'll take to do, but the fact is that they don't. That you don't know how long it's going to take you to do them. And so when you try to predict that and lay all those steps out on a timeline, your prediction is going to be wrong. It's going to be wrong in a way that you can't predict how wrong it's going to be. It's definitely going to be longer than you predict, because no predictions, you never predict that something will take you less time than it really will take you to do. Or it's very rare for that to occur. Maybe a very, very short little activity you might estimate to be an hour and it might be 45 minutes. Or you might estimate it to be 10 minutes and it might actually only take you 5 minutes. But generally speaking, if an activity is over a day, your estimate is likely to be, at best, it will be accurate, and normally it will be way under. And so you add all those things together, and you end up with things that are really, really late. And if you've tried to optimize the work, that set of work, to be the most efficient use of your resources, meaning, for example, if you're writing a software, you say, well, I'm gonna get all these activities ordered in such a way that I have the least amount of waiting and the least amount of inefficiency of my developers based on the estimates that I know. What that means is you often are going to be putting less valuable things into the beginning of the timeline because they're going to fit, and that means putting more valuable things toward the end of the timeline. Now, if the estimates were accurate, that might work. You'd still get those valuable things done. But since we just talked about we can't estimate effectively, that means that those things that you put at the end of the timeline are likely to slip off of the timeline altogether, or slip out of the delivery window. And so you'll have delivered less valuable things. You won't have met your original schedule. You'll only be delivering less valuable things, and the valuable things have fallen totally off the timeline. So if you look at Agile from that perspective, from the perspective of, well, the real problem is not anything about documentation or anything like that. It's that we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to predict how long something's going to take. And so if you come from that perspective, then you say, well, let me just focus on getting the most important thing done first, and then I can look at what else is left and maybe do those things. But if I always focus on getting the most important thing done first, irrespective of